Hey y'all, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I'm so excited that you're here. I know it's been a quick minute, but I did want to give an update on the most recent adventure I've been on, which was Ironman Texas 70.3. Ironman Texas 70.3 takes place down in Galveston, which is an island. Yes, Texas has an island off of the coast of Houston. And what's great is, for me, it's a more local race. It only requires a couple hour drive. And so it's one of the first races of the year. It took place on April 7th, the day after Ironman 70.3 Oceanside. And so it was a great race, and I can't wait to dive in and tell you all about it. So Friday, I took the day off of my day job, and we trucked down to Houston about mid-morning to miss kind of the Dallas traffic, and then of course miss the Houston traffic going into town. It was just me and my family. It was super great. We were able to take the wheels off the bike, slot that into the back of our car, and just be ready to spend the weekend in Galveston. Now, what's great is you trek into Galveston, and we stayed at the race hotel, which was Moody Gardens. Moody Gardens was a fantastic location for this race because it's right there. You walk out the doors and you're basically at Athletes Village Transition. Everything is right there, which was super convenient for my family, and of course any of the other families there, so that they could potentially refresh in the hotel, grab food, things of that nature, while the race is going on. Now, that being said, I'll give you kind of a timeline of how this went, and exactly how the race panned out for me personally. Now, first things first is trek down Friday, beat most of the traffic, thankfully. If you know Texas traffic, you know that Houston is still 2 hours away from Houston. And so luckily we beat most of that traffic, which is phenomenal. Headed into Moody Gardens, the hotel, checked in, unloaded the cars, and then we immediately went to dinner. We found this place called Jimmy's on the Pier, which was a fantastic spot for us to go. It was right on the pier off of Seawall Boulevard. It was absolutely gorgeous to be able to go there. Lots of other teams and athletes were eating there as well. And it was great. Good food. Took a long time, but nonetheless, it was a fantastic experience for us. Went to bed pretty early that night, which was nice. Went back to the hotel, just kind of de-stressed, had the kids hang out. I think we threw on like HGTV or something wild, and just relaxed. Saturday morning came along. Oh, excuse me. I forgot that Friday I completely checked in to the race. And so, like I was saying, Athletes Village is right there. Perfect spot. I was able to, basically walk right out the doors, go check in, grab all my race bibs, my race packet, backpack, all the things, and walk right back to the hotel. Ooh, excuse me. That being said, Saturday morning, woke up, went to another cool little breakfast spot that was a local breakfast spot right on Seawall Boulevard. It was a fantastic little joint. Ordered everything, like pancakes, eggs, biscuits and gravy, all the things, right? Because at this point, I'm carbing up. I'm really, it's 24 hours out. I've been carbing up for the past few days, and so I'm just kind of adding on to those carbs. Now, I'll be really honest with you all and telling you that Saturday morning at breakfast, it's a smaller little restaurant. It's kind of loud in there. My anxiety shoots absolutely through the roof. I actually have to leave my family who's at the table enjoying their meal, and I had to leave. I had to go outside. I had to kind of get away from it all because my nerves and my anxiety are just really building at this point. And you're like, why are you so nervous? Well, for the past 10 days or so prior to this, the forecast had said it's 88% chance of rain all day. It's going to start raining at 5 a.m. It's going to be raining all day. It's just going to be a mess, right? And I've not ridden my bike in the rain. I've not swam in the rain. Running in the rain, yeah, different thing, but that's fine, right? And so all of this is kind of like building in my head. I'm second guessing, like, oh my gosh, I missed some training blocks. Am I going to be okay? I have I had enough electrolytes? Have I eaten enough? Like, all the things are just really building in your own brain, and it's something I struggle with. But at the same time, my family was there to just really calm me down and talk me through it, which was fantastic. Saturday, there's a couple of athlete briefings going on. So went back to Moody Gardens, went to the athletes briefing in Ironman Village, and which was fantastic. And that's where we ended up linking up with some of our other friends who had come down. And it was super great to hang out with them, go kind of walk, see the swim start. It was about a half a mile walk to the swim start. So it was nice to kind of walk and just kind of let some of those nerves, calm down. At this point, it's getting sunny, it's warm, it's in Galveston, so it's already warm. But I will say it's windy. And so, watching the waves come onto, from the Gulf of Mexico on Seawall Boulevard, you start to be like, oh no, like this is not going to be good tomorrow. Granted, we're swimming in Offats Bayou, which is just on the other side. So it's not the Gulf, it's kind of broken up like the Gulf of Mexico, Galveston, and Offats Bayou is kind of right in here, right outside of Moody Gardens. And so you're just starting to think of all the things, right? My family ended up going to the pool, which was super great for them. They were able to relax and hang out. I kind of got my bike ready so that I could take that to check-in really simply. I had till 5:00 that day to get my bike ready and checked in. And it was fantastic, right? Like the volunteers were phenomenal. The Ironman staff was super great and helpful. And I just kind of took that time to, walk through kind of my transition bag and then all my bike necessities and get my bike downstairs, into transition. And then I went and joined my family for, some pool time, which was super great, helped me kind of take a step back. I'm sitting there kind of sweating, and I turned to my wife. I'm like, I can't be sweating. Like, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I just can't be sweating. Like, I'm going to sweat tomorrow. I know it. And she's like, oh yeah, I forget you have a race tomorrow. So I think we had ordered pizza to the hotel for lunch, which was super nice. And then Saturday night, we ended up linking up with our friends, and we went to dinner, at a nice place, had a nice big old burger. We had like a big old pretzel with some cheese. It was phenomenal. Right. And I'm loving it. I'm like, give me all the carbs. And so Sunday morning comes along, and transition is open from 5 to 7 a.m. I set my alarm for 3 a.m. or 3:30 a.m., something like that. Woke up, had my coffee, like just really started to like zen out, until I started to get ready. And once I started to get ready is when you start to get in the game, right? Like I'm playing some music. I am like, okay, I'm ready. Sunblock up, all the things, right? Head down to transition, get my transition bag all situated, see some more friends that are racing there, and say good morning, and all the things are happening. And then it's about a half a mile walk to swim start. So me and my family truck over there. My family's getting eaten by mosquitoes at this point. I mean, they are like, it's insane. It was supposed to start raining at like 5 a.m. It was not raining, which was wild. And so my family ended up walking back from swim start to kind of just transition. They were positioning themselves for like when I was going to be ready for the swim. Met our friend, him and I kind of like walked through the swim together. It took an awful long time for us to get into the water, a lot longer than it did in Waco. And so once we did get into the water, I will say the water was calm, almost like very like eerily calm. But it was great. Like, right, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be getting smashed by waves and taking all of this water in. But the same thing happened in Waco, and that's that I get into the open water. I cannot see anything beneath me, and I freak out. And so I try and swim maybe 50 to 100 meters, 100 yards, something like that out, about 100 yards. And I have to pick up my head. I've got to pick up my head. It's my wetsuit's tearing into the back of my head. And that's how I swam the remaining, 2,000 yards or so, was just really with my head above the water. There were quite a few people kind of as I was waiting to get in the water that were actually being pulled from the water, that needed assistance, which kind of messes with your mind, if I'm just being honest. And so I had not seen that before. And there was about 3 or 4 that I saw come in on, boats, or jet skis, which was a little terrifying. It is saltwater in Off Bayou, so you hopefully get a little bit more buoyancy, especially with your wetsuit, which was great. But I will tell you, you see this paddle wheel boat, something like that. And that's kind of like when you turn to go in to swim out. And I could have not been more happy to see that stupid boat so that I could just get done with the swim. Once I got done with the swim, they did say in the athlete briefing that we would not have strippers. The strippers are the people that take your wetsuit off. But to our surprise, there were strippers there, and I laid down, had them rip off that suit, and then went into transition. And in transition, it was great. I got to see my family, all the things, and I was excited to get out on the bike. Yes, the bike is there's a lot of unknowns, right? There's a lot of cracks in the road. There's people that you just can't control what they're going to do. And your tires, and did I bring enough fuel and hydration, right? Like all of the things, but I was done with the swim. And my coach, shout out to my coach, who just said hey, the swim is just your access point from the start of the race to the bike. You don't have to make up time there. It just gets you from point A to point B, and your end goal is point Z, right? So just keep trekking. So once I got onto the bike, I was like, okay, this is it. We're going to smooth sail this ride. I was really hoping for a bike PR sub 3 hours, because if you recall in Waco, it did take me about 3.5 hours or so to finish that bike ride. It was a long bike ride. We had crazy headwinds, all the things, right? So the catch with this bike ride in Galveston is that you can either get the crosswind or you can have that headwind tailwind factor. I'll say heading out on there, it was a little clustery in the sense of there was just a lot of people. And it was turn before you kind of get onto this really good straightaway that you're really on for 52 miles of it basically. So it's a 28-mile out and back, which is fantastic. And it's mostly flat. Who doesn't want a flat course? And so once I kind of got out there, I really found my groove. I think even my family was like, gosh, at one point you were trekking along 21 miles an hour, which may not seem like much for some people. But being out there in the real world on a bike with some crosswind, it felt great. And I really enjoyed the bike. I'll tell you that I think I would tweak some of my hydration for this next round. I did have 2 water bottle holders in addition to my torpedo hydration in the center of my bike in between my aero bars. And I will likely be tweaking I only had water in this and I had electrolytes in the bottles. But I think that I've got to definitely switch some things up and figure out some different ways to hydrate going into this next one. And then I will say it was hot. There was no rain. There was sun. It was fantastic. I will say there were a lot of fuzzy caterpillars crossing the road as we were trekking along. So it became a game of not hating the caterpillars. And of course, paying attention to everything else going around, by things happening around me. Right. And so, once I got into bike transition, I gobbled down half of an Uncrustable. It's my signature thing. And, I was actually dying for water at this point, because I had run out of water in my torpedo. And like I said, my bottles only had, electrolytes in them, which I had downed most of them at this point. And so once I got onto the run, they have an aid station about a mile and a half in, something like that. And oh my gosh, I will tell you, the aid stations on the run are my absolute favorite thing because there's everything you could ever want there. Coke, water, there was Gatorade. At this one, they had Mortal Hydration. They were kind of figuring out both because Ironman has now inked a deal with Mortal Hydration and will no longer be using Gatorade. There was chips and pretzels and Morton gels and Morton bars and just kind of the whole spread of things. And I will tell you, that water never tasted so good. A warm Coca-Cola, which is sounds disgusting, never tasted so good. Ice cups, all the things, right? And so once I got to that, I'm all right, ran that first, the run course is about 4.5-ish or so miles of loops. So you do the loop 3 times, through Moody Gardens, mostly. It's a tight run course. So much so that you're sharing kind of this shoulder of the road, which honestly is maybe 3-4 feet wide. And you're turning around. So as I'm going this way, there's people coming this way, and you're hitting shoulders and you're trying to pass people, but you can't pass people. And it's honestly I think there's a lot of improvement that they could do on the run course portion. Just the way that they have the athletes go. But the first 4.5 miles kind of breeze by. I'm yes, I'm killing it. And I get to the second loop and I'm oh my God, I've never felt such quad cramps in my entire life. This is not going to be good. And luckily, I just kept pushing water, pushing ice, grabbing Coke, just trying to do whatever I could to keep moving. Because at this time I'm mathing in my head. And if you've ever met somebody that does any type of event, there's a lot of mathing going on in the head at all times, right? Okay, if I had this swim time and this transition time and this bike time and this transition time, I can hit this goal. And so at this point, I'm okay, I think I can hit sub 6. I think I can hit sub 6 if I keep up a certain pace, right? And so I am dying. Flat out dying. It is hotter than hell. I can't even fathom continuing. But I make it to the third loop and I'm okay, you've only got 4.5 miles left. You can do this. And there's a lot of talking to myself, right? I'm running. I'm you can do this, John. You can do this. Yelling at myself. One thing I will say is the spectators, what's nice is that loop, the spectators are almost everywhere. And so there's music going on. There's people cheering everywhere. The energy is there. It was just, can I make it this far? Yes, I can. I've done half marathons. I've done an Ironman 70.3. I can do this. But now it was, can I do this in my new sub 6 goal, right? which for most people it's like sub 6, who cares? But for me, I was like, sweet, that would be so awesome if I would be able to make it sub 6. So I'm trekking along, every loop I get to see my wife and kids, which was fantastic. Always been able to give fist bumps, whatever it might have been, kind of throughout each one, which I absolutely would not have traded for the world. All said and done, I come in, I finish at 6 hours and 19 seconds. So he didn't hit the sub 6 goal, but don't worry, there's another Ironman 70.3 on the calendar this year. And I'm not saying it out loud, but I think it'd be pretty sweet if I could hit that sub 6 goal. But I think any victory in just being able to complete these, or any endurance event, whether that be a 5K, 10K, half marathon, whatever it might be, is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. All said and done, finished, couldn't breathe, was dying, contemplated going to the medical tent, grabbed pizza and chips for the kids because I knew that they would want certain chips, grabbed Coke and water and all the things, and went out, sat down, and called my wife, and I'm like, hey, I'm by this tent. And so she comes over with the kids to the tent, and they just sit with me. And no joke, I'm pretty sure we sat there for 30, 45 minutes. I could not breathe. I could not talk. Our friend Ashley came up, and she's like, awesome job. Do you need anything? I'm like, yes, please go into transition, go into my bag, grab my inhaler, because I think I'm going to die. And she grabs it, lifesaver. And my poor family, they sat there, asking me how it went and what I needed and all the things. And I was giving very short, very one-word answers, but they sat there with me, no questions asked, and just wanted to make sure that I was okay. Once I was able to kind of start moving and walking again, it was great. We got to see our other friend, Shanna, complete her race, which was fantastic. Got to watch one of the folks that comes to some of my cycle classes at the gym, saw him get to finish, and then trekked back up to the hotel, packed everything up, showered off, and trekked back home to Dallas. What was wild is we didn't experience any rain. None. Zilch, zero. It was hot. It was 98% humidity at like 80 degrees all day long. It was thick. And then after, on our way out of Houston, we stopped at In-N-Out, and I had the best strawberry milkshake I've ever had in my entire life, along with a double and some French fries. And kudos to my wife who drove us home that night as I was dozing in and out of consciousness, just trying to catch some sleep. And now we're heading back into a build, right? I've taken off the Badass Half Marathon at the end of May off of my calendar, and we're heading straight into Ironman Waco 70.3 in October, and the full Ironman 140.6 Panama City Beach, Florida in November. Stay tuned as I'll try to just bring more wholesome updates. Thanks for following along. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. We'll talk to you soon.